Chapter 44. The Utility of Stove Funnels. It was evident that, unconsciously and moved solely by their chivalrous and adventurous character, our three friends had rendered a service to someone whom the cardinal honored with his own special protection. But who was that someone? This was the question which our three musketeers first asked themselves. Then, finding that none of the replies which their intelligence suggested were satisfactory, Porthos called the landlord and asked for some dice. Porthos and Aramis placed themselves at a table and began to play, whilst Athos walked up and down the room in deep thought. As he walked and meditated, he passed and repassed before the funnel of the former stove, which had been half broken off, and of which the other end went into the apartment above. Each time that he passed, he heard the murmur of speech, which at last attracted his notice. Athos approached and distinguished some words, which certainly appeared to deserve so much attention that he made signs to his two companions to be silent, and remained himself with his ear bent down to the level of the lower opening of the funnel. "Listen, my lady," said the cardinal. "The business is important. Sit down and let us talk about it." "My lady," muttered Athos. "I am listening to your eminence with the greatest attention," replied a voice which made him start. "A small vessel with an English crew, whose captain is devoted to me, awaits you at the mouth of the Charente at the Fort de la Pointe. It will sail tomorrow morning." "I must go there tonight, then." "Directly, that is to say, as soon as you have received my instructions. 2 men, whom you will find at the door when you go out, will escort you. You will let me depart first, and then half an hour after you will depart yourself." "Yes, my lord. Now let us return to the commission which you are pleased to charge me, and as I am anxious to continue to merit your confidence, deign to explain it in clear and precise terms, so that I may not make any error." There was a moment of profound silence between the two interlocutors. It was evident that the cardinal was weighing beforehand the expressions he was about to use, and that the lady was collecting all her intellectual faculties to understand what he was going to say, and so to engrave it on her memory when it was said. Athos took advantage of this moment to tell his two companions to fasten the door inside, and to beckon them to come and listen with him. The 2 musketeers, who loved their ease, brought a chair for each of themselves, and one for Athos. They all 3 seated themselves with their heads close together and their ears wide open. "You're going to London," resumed the cardinal. "On arriving there, you will seek out Buckingham." "I would observe to your eminence," said her ladyship, "that since the affair of the diamond studs, in which the duke has always suspected me, his grace mistrusts me." "But you will have no occasion this time," said the cardinal, "to gain his confidence. You are to present yourself frankly and loyally as an ambassadress." "Frankly and loyally," repeated the lady with an indescribable accent of duplicity. "Yes, frankly and loyally," replied the cardinal in the same tone. "All this business must be transacted openly." "I will follow your eminence's instructions to the very letter, and I wait for you to give them." "You will go to Buckingham from me, and you will tell him that I am aware of all the preparations he is making, but that I do not much disturb myself about them, seeing that, at the first step on which he ventures, I will destroy the Queen." "Will he believe that your eminence is in a condition to execute your threats?" "Yes, for I am in possession of proofs." "It will be necessary for me to be able to submit these proofs to his examination." "Certainly, and you will say to him first that I shall publish the report of Bois Robert and of the Marquis de Beautreau concerning the interview which the Duke had with the Queen at the house of the High Constable's lady on the evening that the latter gave a masked ball, and you will add, in order to leave him no room for doubt, that he came in the costume of the Great Mogul, which was to have been worn by the Duke of Guise, and which he bought of this latter for the sum of 3,000 pistoles. Good, my lord. All the details of his entry into the Louvre, where he introduced himself in the character of an Italian fortune-teller, and of his leaving in the night, are known to me. And you will tell him, in order that he may be again assured of the accuracy of my information, that he had under his cloak a large white robe thickly covered with tears and death's heads and crossbones, in which, in case of surprise, he was to personate the phantom of the White Lady, who, as is well known, revisits the Louvre whenever any great event is about to be accomplished. Is that all, my lord? Tell him that I know all the particulars of the adventure at Amiens, and that I shall make a little spiritually turned romance of it, with a plan of the garden and the portraits of the principal actors in that nocturnal scene. I will tell him this. Tell him further that I have got Montague in the Bastille. It is true we found no letter on him, but the torture may make him tell all he knows, and even a little more. Perfect. And lastly add that his Grace, in his hurry to leave the Isle of Ré, forgot to remove from his quarters a certain letter of Madame de Chevreuse, which strangely compromises the Queen, inasmuch as it proves not only that Her Majesty can love the enemies of the King, but also that she can conspire with the enemies of France. You now thoroughly comprehend all that I have told you, do you not? Your Eminence shall judge the High Constable's ladies' ball, the night at the Louvre, the evening at Amiens, the arrest of Montague, and the letter of Madame de Chevreuse. That is right, my lady, that is right, you have an excellent memory. But, resumed she to whom the cardinal had just addressed this compliment, if in spite of all these reasons the Duke should not surrender, and should continue to menace France? The Duke is in love like a madman, or rather like a ninny, replied Richelieu with intense bitterness. Like the paladins of old, he has only undertaken this war to obtain a glance from his mistress's eyes. If he knows that the war will cost the lady of his love her honor, and perhaps her liberty, I warrant you that he will look twice at it before he decides. But yet, said the lady with a perseverance which proved she was determined to understand all that was included in the mission that she was about to undertake, but yet, if he should persist? If he persists, said the cardinal, but it is not probable. It is possible, rejoined the lady. If he persists, his Eminence paused and then continued, if he persists, well, I must put my hope in one of those events which change the fortune of nations. If your Eminence would cite to me some of those historical events, said her ladyship, I might possibly participate in your confidence concerning the future. Well, look, for example, said Richelieu, when, for a cause very similar to that which now actuates the Duke, His Majesty Henry IV, of glorious memory, went in 1610 to invade at the same time both Flanders and Italy, in order that he might assail Austria on both sides. Did not an event occur which saved Austria? Why should the King of France not have the same good fortune as the Emperor? Your Eminence alludes to the assassin's knife in the Rue de la Ferronnière? Precisely so, said the cardinal. Is your Eminence not afraid that the fate of the Ravillac would deter those who might for an instant be tempted to imitate his example? In all times and all countries, especially in those countries which are divided by religious faith, there are always fanatics who would be well contented to be regarded as martyrs. And here, at this very moment, it occurs to me that the Puritans are furious against the Duke of Buckingham, and that their preachers speak of him as the Antichrist. Well, inquired her ladyship. Well, continued the cardinal in a careless tone, it would be only necessary, for instance, to find some young, beautiful, and clever woman who wanted to take revenge upon the Duke. Such a woman may be found. The Duke has been a favored lover, and if he has sown much affection by his promises of eternal constancy, he has also sown much hatred by his continual infidelities. Unquestionably, remarked her ladyship coldly, such a woman may be found. Well, such a woman would, by putting the knife of Clement or of Ravaillac into the hands of an assassin, save France. Yes, but she would be an accomplice in assassination. Have the accomplices of Ravaillac or of Jacques Clement ever been discovered? No, for they were perhaps too high in station for anyone to dare seek them where they really were. It is not for everybody, my lord, that the palace of justice would be burned down. What, do you not believe, then, that the burning of the palace was an accident of chance? Asked Richelieu, in the very tone with which he would have asked the most unimportant question. "Ay, my lord," replied her ladyship, "I have no belief about it. I cite a fact, nothing more. Only I would say that if I were called Mademoiselle de Montpensier, or the Queen Marie de Medicis, I should take fewer precautions than I do now that I am simply named Lady de Winter." "That is quite fair," said Richelieu. "What is it, then, that you require?" "I require an order, ratifying beforehand whatever I may think it necessary to do for the prosperity of France. But we must first find the woman I alluded to, who craves revenge upon the Duke." "She is found," said the lady. "Then we must find out the wretched fanatic who will serve as the instrument of God's justice." "He shall be found." "Well," said the cardinal, "it will then be time enough to solicit the order that you have just demanded." "Your eminence is right," resumed her ladyship, "and I was to blame for seeing in the mission with which you honour me anything beyond what it in truth embraces, that is, to announce to his grace in your eminence's name that you are aware of the different disguises under which he contrived to approach the queen at the entertainment given by the constable's lady, that you have proofs of the interview which the queen granted at the Louvre to a certain Italian astrologer, who was no other than the Duke of Buckingham, that you have given directions for a spiritual little romance concerning the adventure at Amiens, with a place of the garden in which it occurred, and portraits of the actors who took part in it, that Montague is in the Bastille, and that the torture may make him tell all that he remembers, and even much that he does not remember, and finally that you possess a certain letter from the Madame de Chevreuse, which was found in his Grace's quarters, and which strangely compromises not only her who wrote it, but also her in whose name it has been written. But if he persists in spite of these representations, as this is the limit of my commission, it will only remain for me to pray to God to perform a miracle for the salvation of France. This is my precise mission, is it not, my lord, and I have nothing else to do?" "Exactly so," said Richelieu coldly. "And now," continued her ladyship, without appearing to observe the altered manner of his eminence toward her, "since I have received your eminence's instructions with regard to your enemies, will your lordship permit me to say a few words concerning mine?" "You have enemies, then?" said Richelieu. "Yes, my lord, enemies against whom you are bound to support me, since I made them in the servants of your eminence." "And who are they?" demanded the cardinal. "There is first a little busybody in the name of Bonancieux. She is in prison at Nantes." "That is to say, she was there," replied the lady, "but the queen has inveigled an order from the king, by the assistance of which she has removed her to a convent." "To a convent," said the cardinal. "Yes, a convent." "And in what convent?" "I do not know. The secret has been well kept." "I will know it, though." "And your eminence will let me know in what convent this woman is?" "I see no objection to that," replied the cardinal. "Very well. Now I have another enemy, whom I fear far more than this little Madame Bonancieux." "Who is that?" "Her lover." "What is his name?" "Oh, your eminence knows him well," exclaimed the lady, carried away by her anger. "It is the evil genius of both of us. It is who, in an encounter with your eminence's guards, turned the victory in favor of the king's musketeers. It is he who gave 3 sword wounds to de Wardes, your eminence's emissary, and who rendered the affair of the diamond studs abortive. And lastly, it is he who, knowing that it was I who had deprived him of Madame Bonancieux, has sworn my death. Ah, said the cardinal, I know who you mean. Yes, I mean that wretch D'Artagnan. He's a bold fellow, that, said the cardinal, and it is exactly because he is a bold fellow that he is the more to be feared. We ought first, said the cardinal, to have some proof of his association with the duke. A proof, exclaimed the lady. I will have a dozen. Well, then, let me have proof, and it is the simplest thing in the world. I will send him to the Bastille. Very well, my lord, but then afterwards? When a man is in the Bastille, there is no afterwards, said the cardinal in a hollow voice. Ah, mordieu, continued he, if it was as easy for me to get rid of my enemy as it is to get rid of you of yours, and if it was against such people as these that you asked me for impunity. My lord, said the lady, boon for boon, life for life, man for man. Give me the one, and I will give you the other. I do not understand what you mean, replied the cardinal, nor do I wish to do so, but I shall be glad to oblige you, and I see no objection to giving you the order you demand, as to such an insignificant creature as this, and the more willingly as you will tell me that this little D'Artagnan is a libertine, a duellist, and a traitor. A wretch, my lord, a wretch. Then give me pen, ink, and paper, said the cardinal. Here they are, my lord. Perfect. There was a moment's silence, which proved the cardinal was occupied in thinking of the words in which the order should be written, or perhaps in writing it. Athos, who had not lost one word of the conversation, took a hand of each of his companions and led them to the other end of the room. Well, said Porthos, what do you want, and why do you not let us hear the end of the conversation? Hush, said Athos in a whisper. We have heard all that it was necessary for us to hear. Besides, I do not hinder you from hearing the rest, but I must go. You must go, said Porthos, but if the cardinal should ask for you, what are we to say? You will not wait for him to ask. You will tell him beforehand that I'm gone in advance to clear the way, since from certain words of our landlords I have been led to suppose that the road is not quite safe. I will drop a word or two to the cardinal's equerry. The rest concerns myself. Do not be uneasy about it. Be prudent, Athos, said Aramis. Make yourself easy, replied Athos. You know that I am cool enough. Porthos and Aramis returned to their places near the funnel. As for Athos, he went out without any disguise, took his horse, which was fastened along with those of his two friends to the shutter, convinced the equerry in 4 words of the necessity of an advance guard on their return, looked with affected care at the priming of his pistols, put his sword between his teeth, and set off as a forlorn hope on the road that led toward the camp.